Your B2B Marketing Pint is the podcast for B2B technology marketers who want to sharpen their competitive edge. Joined by other marketing veterans, your hosts Brian O'Grady and Brendan Ziolo share expertise on what works today and why. Grab a cold pint of hot takes on branding, content marketing, demand generation, and more, served with a side of sarcasm.
You have joined a new episode of B2B Marketing Pint. I'm Brian O'Grady. One of the fellows on your screen with a lighter shirt is Brendan, and I'm really more curious about the fellow in the darker blue shirt, and I think, Brendan, I would welcome it if you would introduce us to him right now.
Hi, everyone, and yes, I am Brendan, and joining us today is Craig Heward. He, not surprisingly for those of you that know me, Craig and I met in a bar. I could end the podcast there and just let all your imaginations run wild, but yeah, it's probably not helpful from a marketing perspective. So Craig and I met at an industry event, pre-event party, or whatever they called it, a couple of years ago, and hit it off, have a lot of similar thoughts on the marketing front and how things should work. But more importantly, Craig brings a very valuable sales perspective from his time as a sales professional with a number of companies, including startups and some more established companies as well. Today, Craig is actually the founder of the Sales Mentor Collective, where he works with CEOs and founders and early stage companies to really help them go from, let's call it founder-led or early sales, to a more established process. And that's what we thought would be super valuable to cover today. But before we get started, according to tradition, Brian, what are you drinking?
That's an excellent question, and it's hard for me to imagine a better collection of guests to ask pithy marketing sales questions to and have a beverage with than you folks. Today, we're checking out a breakaway IPA by a very local brewery in my adoptive hometown of Guelph, Ontario. That's by Fixed Gear. They've got a bunch of goodies. This is, I think, the first one I brought to the podcast, and I'll be excited between questions to be sipping on this with you folks. Brendan, what do you got?
So I am once again carrying the non-alcohol banner for our podcast. I am drinking a Harmons. This has actually been on my list for quite some time. I can't remember who introduced me or suggested I try it, but finally got around to buying a couple. So super excited to try this one on our podcast today. It's the Half Day Hazy IPA, if anyone wants more specifics. And for Harmons people, sponsor us. Sorry, was that subliminal enough? And Craig, what are you drinking? On to more serious topics.
Yeah, that was the most perfect sales pitch I've ever seen, Brendan. So well done. Thanks for having me. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to my beverage of choice, which is local here in Ottawa, Van Cleek Hill, Lug Tread. Just their typical Lagerdale, great summertime sipper. It's one of my go-tos and has been for a number of years. So really excited to chat, learn, share, and have a beverage. So, I also have, of course, the matching glass.
Brandon Glassware.
Nice.
There you go. So thanks.
Nice.
I bought this one, but Bose, if you want to send me some more, I'll completely promote you some more. So.
Yeah, and Bose, it's first come, first serve on the sponsorship. So I don't mean to just plug Harmons here.
Wow. Should we get breakaway on this as well, Brian? So we get a trifecta of beer sponsors.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I'm sure Fixed Gear will be chafing at the bit to be part of this.
Don't leave us out.
Well, okay. Again, let's do something more interesting to our marketing friends than try and plug our sponsorship opportunities. But cheers before we get started.
Cheers.
Brian, Craig.
Remember, look each other in the eye as you cheers.
All right, so I'm going to get the ball rolling so I can drink and Craig can do all the talking. As I kind of mentioned at the start, what intrigued me when we've talked numerous times is that whole, founder-led sales is essentially the reality for a lot of startups. But at some point, that doesn't scale. Not all founders are the best salespeople. So kind of when do you make that determination? What's the right time to say, okay, we need to build out our sales organization. We need to scale. kind of how do you make that decision, and then how long does it take? Because I'm going to assume it's not, founder-led sales today, full-blown sales organization tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a good one because it certainly does change depending on where that founder is in their cycle of development. And there's a number of different routes and different sales personalities that a founder could bring on board to help them with their process as well. So if you look at sales as a whole, I always find that there's 2 or 3 angles for sales. And there's that grinder, kind of get out there and find business, find conversations to have. There's the person who's probably a little bit more skilled at the back and forth and the discovery side of it. There's the closer, there's the keep your people happy, and the customer retention side of it. And rarely do you find one person that can do all 4 of those jobs really well. So it's probably good for a founder to understand, where am I, what do I need help with from a sales perspective in order to move the revenue of our company. And if a founder is looking at themselves and saying, I don't have the time to go out and find business. I can have those conversations, I can move the business, but I don't have time to go out and find it, then maybe that hunter to open up doors, develop some appointments, SDR, sales development rep role is the right first hire for them, essentially to fill my calendar with conversations with prospective clients. And then as a founder, you've got all the passion, you've got all the years of experience of talking to people about your product or service that you can go in there and close the deal, et cetera, and move it forward. Now, if the founder wants to get really out of that process and go back to R&D and improving the product, because maybe they're a tech person, maybe they're more involved in the product that they're offering to the market and what it needs, and they want to get back into that piece because that's their passion and not the sales piece, then yeah, you probably need that middle person who can get in there and have really solid conversations with a prospect and try to understand, what is it about my product or service that can solve some issues, that can help that business grow, that can help them achieve their issues. And that second level is probably somebody that you need at that point. Now, the ideal time to get in there and hire that person is going to be dependent on everybody, but I think it's a capacity issue. And I think owners and founders and CEOs are sort of going to understand when they're going to be pulled into a direction of company growth that's required from an investment of people, investment in technology stacks, investment in R&D, and less on the revenue side. And that's when you really have to double down. And if you can pass off the revenue to experts in the revenue field, you can continue on growing the company as a whole and develop the goals, the values, and the processes that go along with it. So I think that would be, if there's a point in time, whatever that looks like, that would probably be the big one, is what does the CEO, what does the founder need to do next for the growth of the company, and what can they hand off?
Well, that's pretty good. I already realize there's a lot I don't know about sales, and I'm realizing that maybe like a lot of people, I just group a lot of things under the heading sales without teasing out what those different dimensions are that you just described and different roles are under that greater heading. So if it's not random, that means it's ordered and structured, and that brings to mind something you said earlier in one of our pre-show briefings, which was, you got to write stuff down. This is not just going to happen. What do you need to be writing down? What are these processes looking like? What's the first thing you should write down if you're getting started? How do you start up a process-driven sales function or sales organization?
Yeah, Brian, I think that's what people skip over. They go in there. Some of the companies I speak with and some of the CEOs and leaders say, I'm just going to hire somebody and they're going to run with it and they're going to be great. He's a great salesperson. Okay, that's fine. But we're I mean, as great as salespeople are as a collective, we're not that. We're not miracle workers. We're not problem solvers instantaneously. It takes us time to ramp up and be really good at the craft. Where an owner or a founder can really help, or any company, you don't have to be in the startup scenario, but any company, marketing team, ownership, leadership, ELT, if you are really tight on who your first ideal customer profile is, that's going to help, because that's going to streamline where is the salesperson, sales team members going to be shooting for that fish in the barrel. And if they have a very, very large barrel the size of the Atlantic Ocean, they're not going to hit. But if you can really narrow that focus down and say, I want you to talk to a customer that looks and acts and talks and spends and buys exactly like this within this parameter, their chances of success of getting into the market and getting into the scenario that is going to be successful is that much more faster, that much more important and scalable. So nailing that and having that written down, we want to know who our customer is. And I know from a marketing perspective, you look at the same type of thing of who we're going to focus on. Sales is no different. We need to know exactly who we want to draw in as an ideal client. From there, why does that client care to talk to you? So you need to know your unique value to the marketplace and have that written down and understand that the problems that I solve is this for my ideal client. And again, that becomes the constant communication, that becomes the messaging for the outreach, for the hallway conversations, for the initial discoveries. And as long as they can fit within your package and you can help them with their problems, then again, you're setting your sales team up for great success in that perspective. So those are two things from a customer focus that I think are really important. The third thing that's always not thought about is, what does it look like when you open up a conversation with a customer to when you hand the customer off to your production team? Whatever the product, whatever the service, you're going to have somebody that executes what you're selling. It could be buying cars, selling cars. It could be SEO services. It could be content writing. It could be legal and justification. You need to know every step in that process from a sales perspective and have that written down. I'm going to contact Brian on this date. I've contacted Brian 87 times over the last 9 months, and I've logged all of those into some sort of a CRM. These are the conversations that we've had. This is how I build my quote. This is how I adjust and edit my quote. This is how I send it. This is how we do our signature and e-signature or DocuSign. Have all of those processes set aside so that when they get into the sales conversation, that's one thing. They get into discovery, that's another thing. And when they get into executing the yes, so when Brian says yes, I need to know everything I need to do really quickly in the sales process to make sure that Brian goes from yes to a super satisfied onboarded customer. And I think that's a big step that people miss, and they don't put much thought and process in it. And having been a salesperson that's been introduced into new sales environments and new sales procedures in different companies, the ramp up time for me to figure out how to execute the sales order, the first time, the second time, the third time, is actually quite a frustrating point to be for the salesperson, because then they're getting pushback, and they're getting pushback from finance because you didn't collect this document. Now I got to go back to Brian. Brian, can you fill out this document because I didn't get it the first time we talked? I need to get legal from Brendan. And Brendan, can you fill out this? Like all those pieces are little fissures of structure and frustration that can be eliminated if you have all that process outlined. And then the salesperson knows, you say yes, this is exactly what I need from you, at what order, at what piece. And then that whole process goes by. And again, it goes on to the whole onboarding of a customer is so much smoother when you have all those things present. Having that all written down, having a Bible, a playbook, or whatever will help any salesperson acclimatize into a new climate really, really quickly, much more quickly than if it's just ad hoc.
Wow. It's much more standardized than I think most people realize. Because maybe, and Brendan, I'm going to throw you the mic in a second here, but I think I'm realizing one of my favorite expressions I got from my father was, it takes an enormous amount of effort to make something look simple. And I bet, a pro salesperson hides all of that complexity that you just described behind the scenes and makes it look simple. And it's not easy to see, but I guess it's pretty important that it's there.
And I think as a customer, it should seem really simple for you as a customer to join me as your new vendor. And as complicated as is back here, you don't need to know that. You shouldn't need to know that. I should like that, and that's my view of bringing a customer on board. Is It should be as easy, as simple, and friction-free as possible for them.
I love it. I'm going to stop there though, because I know Brendan's dying to get in, and I need to sip my beer.
But that's a lot to digest, and a lot of good insights and things to consider. Maybe shifting gears a bit then from that is, at the start we talked about, going founder-led sales to hiring a sales organization. Everyone will want that to happen overnight. It just goes to say that everyone wants the revenue, obviously, to start rolling in overnight as well. I always laugh. I've been in numerous meetings through my career where it's, the sales cycle is, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, whatever it is. And then, the next day it's like, so did you close any deals? It's like, well, no, the sales cycle is 6 or 8 or 12 months, right? So there's a certain level of expectation setting in all of this, but, what are, kind of your tips, Craig? What are some insights? What are some ways that you go about setting these expectations so that, the new sales hire isn't getting hounded, day 2, 3, 4, 5 for the first big deal, right? When you've got a sales cycle that's several months. So how do expectations fit here, and what are some of the tips to setting those?
I think the first tip and the most important tip is to know your numbers as an organization, right? Like kind of what you mentioned, our sales cycle is 6 to 9 months. Well, how the heck do you expect somebody to step in brand new, fresh out of training for 30 days, downloaded with massive amounts of information to be able to turn over sales if the average sales cycle is 6 to 9 months? So from an organizational, like if you're bringing on salespeople, you need to know all of that. When a customer first knocks on the door and clicks on an ad and is converted and put into my sales funnel, how long from that point to when we get an executed sales contract, that's important. And I think losing focus on that when you bring on a new person, putting the pressure on that person to perform with that knowledge is really unfair to the marketing team, the ELT team, shareholders, or whatever. Say, we're going to bring this person on, they're going to be an instant provider and an instant contributor, when you know that's just not the way the market rolls. And it's not even the way your business rolls. So knowing your numbers is the most important thing in that whole piece. And if you don't know them, investigate those before you hire somebody. How long is it taking for Brandon to understand? He brings in a lead, he converts it, he closes it, he executes the sales process. And if that takes you a month, it's a very transactional piece, great. If it's 6 months to a year, have those expectations that whomever you bring on is going to have to live on that. Now, also keep in mind that you as an owner or co-founder, you have a tremendous amount of passion and built up knowledge and experience on this product or service that you're selling that you built up over 2 or 3 years launching this product or service, that you've been able to hone and craft and execute your pitch roughly or exactly as it is, that person doesn't have. So that person is starting on day one with 0. You're trying to compare that person to you after 3 years of trying and struggling and voicing and figuring out the market. So that has to play in it. I always say the expectation of bringing on a new salesperson to effectively be confident in the product is several months, much less competent and successful. So I think time is a big thing. Managing your expectation that this is going to take a lot longer than you anticipate, with all of those factors put in place, is the big tip. You just have to know your numbers to begin with.
The expression a 10-year overnight success hops to mind. Yeah, that's good insight. Thank you. I want to talk about data for a second, Craig. I love me some data. And my kids would say I'm a hashtag blessed to have come up in my career when data was suddenly available and suddenly mattered to marketers. I saw the total transformation in marketing. I've never been in sales per se. I know what happened there, but I don't know exactly what happened there. On the marketing side, we've gone from, best guesses and the highest paid salary in the room is always right to actually using data to make some decisions. And it's been really refreshing I imagine particularly for people on the creative side of the business that know damn, this is measurable. It's not all just subjective. So I'm familiar with it on the marketing side. In your time, what have you seen happen on the sales side? And when I ask that, I know we've worked with ABM tools together with sales. I know data can actually bring marketing and salespeople closer together. What have you seen happen on the sales side of the business with data over your career from when you started until where you are now?
That's a really good question. 20 years ago when I got into sales, data wasn't even a thing, right? Like it was just pound calls, right? Like doesn't matter, just go and go and go, volume, volume, volume. And now it's transgressed to a situation where volume doesn't win enough business for an organization anymore, and it has to be targeted, it has to be smart, and it has to be intelligent for the buyer. So volume doesn't really win anymore. And that's where the understanding of who you're targeting, where they are in their buying cycle, and then how long it truly is going to take for you to kind of connect with them, intrigue them enough to at least respond to you and not just auto delete your inbox or voicemail or whatever that or LinkedIn messaging or something. So I think data is super important when you're evaluating a salesperson's approach. And it's not just a numerical piece. A lot of it's unquantifiable data that's out there that you need to look at. How are they communicating to a prospect or a client? Not just when. I can easily I can set up an email chain that fires off an email every 2 weeks saying, how are things? How are things? How are things? And that's not sales. That's just whatever. Like, yeah, I reached out to Brendan and Brian like 800 times in the last 2 years, and they've never responded to me. That's a dead account. But if we equate the numbers with the content and the messaging and the reasons behind it, that's really powerful data. When I talk to my clients about ROI on this investment, when I talk to them about lifetime value of a customer, when I talk to them about these certain things that are quantifiable in their words, in their terms, I get through faster. That's really valuable data to have and helps me as a salesperson and as a sales leader to hound my approach, just like you would in a marketing perspective, to make any one of those contacts a little bit better because it's a lot more targeted. And I think targeted messaging is really important, and it's part of the data. I think to your point, Brian, people look at data as numbers and facts and figures. And I think it's well beyond that. That's a part of it, and that's not the whole picture of it as well. So I think you really need to know all of it, like the whole content behind data and how to improve these days. But buyers are just too intelligent to try to schmooze over quickly with quick volume.
So we can't just send them beer and expect to get them to come on a podcast, for
Beer,
example.
oddly enough, works. That
okay.
Beer and whiskey works, is what I found.
Brendan, can you write that down?
Yeah. New headline.
Okay, I think I'm done. All right, I'm out.
Beer and whiskey works. Yeah. It's interesting you started to go down this path, Craig, around the quantity and the effectiveness and stuff from the data perspective, because I was going to ask about, I think it's been around for a while, but it seems to be getting more and more common, is that, one of the initial hires, one of the initial attempts to generate leads or drive sales in an organization is to, hire an SDR or outsource it. And I'm sure we've all got the LinkedIn requests, the phone calls, the emails, etc. Your 800 emails over 2 years or whatever example type thing. In your, from what you've seen, I guess first question is, does that work? Would you recommend it? How do other salespeople view that, right? If that's kind of the starting point or that's the suggestion to improve things.
I think I have seen SDR tactics work really, really well. I've also seen them not work well, and I've been part of both of those from both sides of the menu as well. Where I find sometimes where SDR work really helps is it's a very transactional conversation that you want to have with a client or a prospect. If it's a one and done type of sales process, it can probably work pretty well, because the faster, if I'm buying something photocopiers. If I'm buying which is probably not a great example, but something tangible, something very quick and easy, in theory, if I'm buying photocopiers for my office, I'm going to send out requests for information on X, Y, and Z. The first one that gets back to me is probably going to have the best chance of actually engaging me. The fourth person is going to piss me off. So there's where the SDR kind of angle can work, because that person is just dedicated on following that stuff up. That's a very transactional. I need X, I need Y, I know what I need. Boom. Where I think it's more difficult is the more complex the sale, the more finite or more niche the product or client base is. Then you go from, again, a mass volume, I'm sending this out to everybody in the database, to my buyers are very unique. My buyers are very niche. I need to approach them in a very sophisticated manner. Yes, an SDR can do that because they can do it at a higher volume. But I think the messaging is the most important part in that whole piece. So I've seen it work in both ways. I've also seen it work where you are targeted on the right people, the right job title, a good message, and it just falls on deaf ears because for whatever reason the messaging is just quiet, right? So and either way, I think you're looking at a scenario of top of the funnel type of approach, and is that the most efficient way of managing top of funnel growth? Is with a body sending out messaging, making phone calls at X amount of dollars a day, X amount of dollars a week. Is there a smarter way that you can use that marketing dollar? I don't even know if that answers your question. I've seen it work both ways, but I think the more transactional the product is, probably the faster success you're going to get out of that platform.
That makes sense, and it explains some of the experiences I've had in my inbox over the years and even today. I want to pivot. I want to change the temperature a little bit here. We've got some good rapport going. We're having a drink together. I think we're close enough for me to ask the difficult questions now, Craig.
All right, let them rip.
Okay. So Brendan and I are marketing people. You're salespeople. Every marketing person listening to me knows what's coming next, and probably the salespeople do too. It's the elephant in the room. Why don't we get along? Why is there a divide between our two tribes that work for the same people and try to ostensibly achieve the same thing? And how do you solve it, Craig? How do I make it go away?
I knew you were going to hit me with this one.
I would go with your beer answer, Craig, from earlier. Beer and whiskey.
Beer, and we'll love marketing. I'd love to get the marketing's perspective. Here's my, again, I've been in selling situations where my marketing team was not helpful at all. And I've been very lucky to have a couple instances where I've been with marketing teams that really understand the greater good and what it means. And from my objective and the couple, 3, 4 different experiences I've had of the right and the wrong on both, and somewhere in the middle lies the truth, is the good experiences is when the CMO, the VP of marketing head didn't look at their department's success based on clicks, on entry forms, on website visits, because those don't drive revenue. What drives revenue in an organization is closed business. Now, the good CMOs, the great VPs of marketing understood the top of the funnel bill that they're responsible for. And if they got 100 leads in that month, but sales only closed 2 of them, great, they hit their target, but we're not making enough revenue. We've got to fire people from an operations, from a growth perspective. So marketing is saying, no, we're doing our job. We're bringing in customers. So the good ones figure out, okay, we brought in 100, but we only closed 2. Why did we only close 2? And what is it about the 2 that we close that we can capture and grow and maybe only bring in 50 of them, but now we're closing 10 of them instead of a 2%, we're into a much better percentage. So I think when marketing looks at their responsibility in revenue of the company and keeping people employed, I think that's where everybody can be friendly, from the CEO right down to the janitor. And in the bad cases, marketing has isolated themselves into this silo of their own, that if we're doing our job, that's all we need to do. Is we just need to drive people to our website, put eyeballs on it. I don't care who it is. I don't care what their intentions are. But we're hitting our numbers, and we're celebrating our numbers because we've increased impressions, we've increased whatever, but we haven't increased in conversions, we haven't increased sales. When they mask that stuff, that's where the friction becomes, because you have salespeople sitting there saying, okay, I've talked to all 100 leads. 98 of them are garbage. They're not in a buying cycle. They don't know what they're doing. It's the wrong person. They have no intention. We got 2, but that didn't float the boat. So I think that's where this disparity comes from. And I credit the marketing directors that I've worked with and the VPs of marketing people that understood the end goal is to build revenue for the company, not just to increase exposure or clicks or any, that stuff, when done well, will drive the revenue. But when it's just isolated into those measurements, I think that's where the friction comes. And then sales is sitting there saying, like, you're giving me crap. Like, I can't close this stuff. It's not. And that's where the friction becomes, where they're celebrating their wins and sales is struggling because of those things. Is they're not really wins for the organization.
I think you've just given me an important insight, and I'm going to stage a follow-up. I think what you just taught me is, because salespeople can work a volume game, you mentioned that earlier, and that can work. And you just mentioned marketing can often work a volume game, and maybe that works or maybe it doesn't. But what I think I just took away from your conversation there, from your response, was marketing and sales can play either a volume game or a quality game, a quantity or a quality game, but they have to be playing the same game. And if they're not, badness is going to result.
Yeah. And that goes to the top, right? That's leadership direction, right? So I don't blame the CMO if what they're chasing is impressions and clicks, and if that's what they have been told to do from leadership. But if that doesn't drive, that's where leadership has to get in place. Like, it's great that you got us all these clicks, but they're coming from the wrong places. So yeah, you're right. If you're chasing different metrics, different outcomes, that's reasonable for me, but not to the other person, then yeah, it's not going to be a successful situation. You have to be on the same page. And I think that same page is written by leadership.
I feel like this is marketing and sales therapy. Thank you. Brendan, bring us home. What do you got?
Yeah, I couldn't agree. And Craig, I guess this is why we get along, because I've written about this. I talk about this. I'm still shocked this just isn't common knowledge. But like, to me, marketing and sales both need to be, share the same goals and objectives, and it needs to be a revenue centric objective, right? But I'm still shocked the number of marketing organizations that aren't that. And I'm even more shocked when I'm in conversations. They're like, well, we can't be measured on revenue type things, right? But I mean, to what you said just totally resonates and stuff. And I think the other part I would add, which is kind of your conversion, just being in sync on those lead definitions, the ICP, the messaging, and all that stuff will really help, align the teams. But yeah, the goal, the revenue, all that stuff totally resonates with me. And yeah, I guess we've solved the sales and marketing divide on this call, at least between 3 of us.
Well, we could just print this over and over, send it to everybody, and then we'll make a few $100.
But I do.
And,
yeah, but I was thinking, I did want to circle back, because we tend to ask this question a lot on the podcast and put our guests on the spot, which, may explain why no one's been back yet. But we talked about sales process. We talked about writing things down. We talked about timing and a lot of the different elements that you need to really make the scaling happen. So can you think of an example of a common failure, either from your own career, which, Brian and I love the most, but doesn't have to be, where just really helps talk to that sales process point. So, is there a failure? Is there something you've seen in your career or with, clients? Don't name names. We're not looking for that, but that really helps to crystallize the importance of this process. If only they had a process, this would not have happened type thing.
Yeah.
See, this guy's not coming back either, Brian.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Thanks for the pint. There's so many times in my career that I failed as a salesperson for the client and for the company. Again, 20 years, I'm failing probably 2 times out of every 3. If I'm closing 30% business or better, then I'm probably doing really, really well. So that means I've lost 50, 60%. So hard for me to think of a specific situation. All of them are so learning. I think one of the ones that I find is a common mistake is when you, and I'm stalling till I figure out something, but when you chase what you know is not a good deal because you need a deal. This is an old employee of mine, a colleague of mine used to call it commission breath. When I'm chasing Brian because I probably can help him, but I can't really help him. I can put stuff in his business and it'll work, it'll be okay, but I really need the sale. So when I chase something that I really need the sale for me, that's where it goes wrong. Because now I'm not doing a service to Brian as a customer. I'm not doing a service as Brendan as my owner and my company. I'm doing this all for myself. And it may be strange to hear a salesperson talk in that type of world of where salespeople are in it to make money, to grow for themselves and be successful. Well, with that comes a lot of responsibility. But when I chase for me, I think that's where I do a disservice to my clients and to my customers and to my current employer. And I really, I need to step back and say, what's the right thing for my prospect? What's the right thing for my company? It doesn't make any sense bringing on a client who's going to quit in 3 months, and we waste all that time onboarding a client, all that infrastructure, hardware, software, intelligent properties, knowing that they're not a good fit to begin with. So that's probably the biggest fail point that I've seen, and I've committed it myself in times to small and large degrees. And I see it happen over and over and over again, that you bring on the wrong fit with the best of intentions, but it's not going to work.
Wow, that's really good.
This is a therapy session.
It's
Brian.
Totally a therapy session.
Maybe we need to rebrand the podcast.
Yeah. Look out, Oprah. Here we come.
Beer therapy, is that?
Yeah, beer. I don't know. We'll work on the naming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brendan, you want to go or shall I go? We're going to wrap this one up.
I was thinking, I think we've taken enough of Craig's time. My beer is getting towards the bottom, as I'm sure yours are too. So, yeah, I really appreciate your time, Craig. But, any final thoughts? Anything you wish we had have asked you?
I mean, we covered a lot, right? We covered everything from expectations of hiring people to how to implement them into an organization.
I got one.
Go ahead then.
One in. Goes like this. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of stories about sales. Everyone's got a story about salespeople. What's the biggest myth out there about sales that drives you nuts, and what's actually real?
That we're all self-serving assholes, I think would be. I don't know if I can say that. You might not edit that, but
we got to re-record everything.
Yeah, I think that's out there. Everybody, you say I'm in sales, people automatically have a defense mechanism to you. We're not that. I think the majority of people who are in sales are there to help, to serve the prospects, to serve their clients, and make sure that they're in a better space knowing me than with or without me as their vendor. But I think that's probably the biggest one, that we're all out for ourselves and we're all out to take your money and give you false promises, all those really negative things. Whereas I think I don't know, give me random number, 87.5% of salespeople out there are really, truly genuine people who want to help businesses and people succeed. And that gets lost in a lot of the mire.
Amazing. I can't think of a better way to wrap this up. Marketing, be nice to your salespeople. Salespeople, be nice to your marketing people.
Love each other. It's just like John Lennon used to say, right? So,
All right. Well, until next time, thank you all for listening. Thank you very much, Craig. Enjoy what remains of your beer, and thanks for the insights. And if you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe, share with your friends, comment, etc. And we'll see you next time.
Hey, folks, if you liked that episode, you won't believe the next one.
So don't forget to subscribe on your favorite platform and you won't miss out.
Or if you've got an idea we haven't thought of yet, hit us up in the comments. We'll cover that too.